Chicago. She is an experienced manager, advocate, and reform expert. She has served as president of the Chicago Police Board. She has tried over 20 federal and state jury bench trials and has argued cases in state and federal appellate courts. She earned her undergraduate degree at the University of Michigan and her law degree at the University of Chicago. She and her spouse, Amy, live on the near northwest side with their beautiful 10-year-old daughter. Ladies and gentlemen, Lori Lightfoot. Lori?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jay, and thank you, the City Club, and thank you for coming this morning. It's really a great honor always to step up and be at this podium, and I'm so happy that so many people from different corners of my life are here this morning, and I want to give a special shout out to my Mayor Brown family. We love you. We love you. We love you. I have had the incredible privilege to bear witness to the magnificent spirit of people throughout the city. By virtue of my status as a candidate, people have been very generous in sharing their stories, their aspirations, their frustrations, their successes, and the challenges that they face every day. My life has been forever changed by what I have seen, what I have heard, and what I have felt. I have seen myself in these people, the family and friends who then and now struggle, but who also have hopes and dreams for a better tomorrow. Coming from where I come from, it is impossible to ignore that yearning. I've also talked to many Chicagoans who feel overwhelmed by our challenges, that they don't believe that city government can ever find solutions. But we can't be afraid to take that first step so that we never take any step at all. We must step out on faith. I'm borrowing a line from Father Pfleger, and be bold in tackling the challenges that must be faced. We can no longer allow a person's zip code to determine their destiny. Fundamentally, this is a fight about equity and social justice for all. It is as much about the parents in Little Village who worry that they'll be taken from their children, and the parents in Austin who worry that their children will be taken from them. In these times, I think a lot about the lessons that I learned from childhood, from my family, friends, and people whose kindness and generosity shaped my life. We did not have much in the way of material wealth, but every day my parents instilled in me a clear set of values like dedication to family, respect for friends, school, and community, the importance of hard work and education, and most importantly, as a young Black girl, to hold my head high and never let anyone dictate the course of my future. My parents grew up in a time when they're raced to find everything in their lives. They were born and lived in the segregated South, and individually and as a unit endured a lifetime of hardships. But like all loving parents, they still wanted more for their children and worked hard every single day to turn those aspirations into reality. Daily, they instilled in me a sense that I could do anything I wanted, and not my race, my gender, nor our financial status could hold me back. I also developed a very strong sense of why equity and inclusion are so fundamentally important, and I stand on those principles today. I have a vision of Chicago where we are united in a common sense of purpose to move our city forward for a greater tomorrow. One city, let me say that again, one city, coming together to take on our challenges, celebrate our triumphs, and where opportunity is truly available to all. To realize this vision will not be easy, and we will absolutely have to face some hard truths. But if we're committed to the change we need, where we do not leave individuals, families, or neighborhoods behind, we can move forward together toward a more prosperous tomorrow. We have to begin by examining our priorities, and specifically how and where we invest. In the last 7 years, we have bet big on downtown investments, the Loop, River North, South and West Loop, and that investment shows. We have a beautiful, gleaming downtown that is the envy of other cities across the country. We continue to set records for the number of tourists who come to our city and spend their money in hotels and restaurants and other attractions. We provide significant incentives to attract and retain businesses in downtown, as we should. But it all seems great. But for some, it's not so great. Not enough people are benefiting from the prosperity, and indeed, every single day, individuals, families, and neighborhoods are suffering. The news from other parts of the cities is far different and far more dire. And we are now at a crisis point. And two words underscore the narrative in those neighborhoods, and that is fear and flight. And how does it manifest itself? You've heard me say this before, but it's worth repeating. And I want you to think about this number, which is 23,000. That's the number of people who have been shot in this city over the last 7 years. 23,000 is not a benign statistic. This shockingly large number also comes with significant costs to every single taxpayer in Chicago. This type of devastation comes with a price tag for costs related to the criminal justice system, increased policing, emergency room, and other medical expenses, and the lack of opportunity of cost from lives left unfulfilled, just to name a few. It represents death, lives shattered, neighborhoods gutted, and dreams that will never be made real. It means lifelong trauma that spreads through communities like a terrible virus. It means that young children grow up with fear as their norm. It wakes them up in the morning, it puts them to bed at night, and it is their constant companion every single day. And this fear is now spread, and many of you in this room know that. It is no longer contained to certain neighborhoods, south of Roosevelt Road or west of Ashland. I hear from people all over the city that the violence, the reality and the threat of it has now overtaken discussions in homes and coffee shops and community gatherings in Northside enclaves. The fear also manifests itself in conversations about whether Chicago is a place where people can continue to live and thrive. People are asking if they can have a real future here. I've had countless conversations over these many months of campaigning among people from all walks of life, young people, seniors, the wealthy, and the working class, who have all have serious doubts about whether they can remain in their homes. We have to give people hope and a reason to stay in this great city. To keep making Chicago a safe and truly welcoming place for families and individuals, where businesses continue to grow and thrive, we have to do more and provide incentives to those same businesses to use their resources and philanthropy to invest in city government that is transparent, inclusive, and ready to take on the necessary challenges, and need I also say, one that is free of corruption. We must address the violence, the absence of safe and high-quality open enrollment elementary and high schools in every neighborhood, regressive taxes that squeeze low and middle-income families and individuals, and the absence of good jobs that pay a living wage so that people can take care of themselves and their families and have the luxury to dream of a comfortable life. The lack of affordable housing options for individuals and families must also be a top priority. And the loss of confidence that this government, whether city, county, or state, will ever be responsive is something that we must understand and address. If we address these and other challenges together, we can stem the tide of people leaving our city by the thousands every year. Chicago remains one of the only metropolitan areas in the country that continues to lose population. And this fact has to be the proverbial canary in the mine shaft and treated with the sense of urgency that it demands. And these losses have real consequences for our city. And let me just name a few. In the last 8 years, we have lost 40,000 school-aged children in this city. This decline is potentially catastrophic for CPS if we don't do something about it. We are also losing our middle class. It is shocking how few people in this city now are middle-class families, and that affects absolutely everything that we're trying to accomplish. We have to have a middle class that feels like it has a stake in the future of Chicago because we have created the conditions for them to stay and thrive. And the hollowing out of our neighborhoods makes the situations for those who remain all the more desperate. The loss of population is also affecting our tax base at a time when we can least afford it. And there are other consequences, but I think you understand the point. So what can we do to address these array of challenges, and can they actually be solved? And if so, of course, we have to ask, at what cost? As mayor, I will continue to work with all Chicagoans to address these urgent needs. I will work with the business community to ensure that we are doing everything that we can to keep our economy vibrant and truly spread that prosperity to areas outside of the downtown. I know firsthand how to work with business leaders. As a senior equity partner at one of the largest law firms in the world, I have spent considerable time in boardrooms with CEOs and other C-suite executives who have sought my counsel to help them solve some of their toughest problems, eliminate risk, and move their businesses forward. My experience is an asset. Let me say that again. My experience is an asset about which I am personally proud and grateful, and I will never let anyone demonize me for fulfilling the dreams that my parents dared to dream for me. I will utilize that experience every day as mayor, and I will assemble a team who understands the importance of engaging the business community to get all of Chicago to move forward. A priority of that work must also be addressing the deterioration of the quality of life in way too many of our neighborhoods. We have both a moral and a fiscal imperative to do so. And developing and executing a comprehensive plan for strengthening our neighborhoods does not mean that we will retreat from continuing to ensure that our downtown areas will thrive. It is a false choice to argue that we cannot do one without the other, and that business development that we have seen will be halted if we turn our attention in any measure to what is happening elsewhere in this city. That is wrong. Will taking care of the needs of our neighborhoods mean that we have to reconfigure some of our priorities? Of course. But providing investments in resource-starved neighborhoods can be done without sacrificing the steady and strong vibrancy of our downtown areas. And doing so will actually strengthen, not diminish, our economy. We can and we must do both simultaneously. The future of our city depends on it. I know this to be true as someone who helped create small business opportunities when I helped run the city's procurement department. I also know it from the perspective of someone who has spent decades as a lawyer advising Fortune 100 companies doing business all over the world, as well as helping small and middle market businesses in Chicago. A multi-track investment strategy must also mean that we run city government far more efficiently than we currently do. I will no longer treat the taxpayers of this city as an ATM machine with no limit. We have to do better to deliver vital city services more efficiently and provide maximum impact for each investment decision. Here are a few of the ideas that we must consider if we are truly going to uplift the quality of life in neighborhoods and become beacons of hope for our kids. First, of course, is public safety. We have to stem the flow of violence. It is the overarching issue that affects everything else that we must tackle, that we must improve in order to move forward. We have to treat this continuing explosion of violence as the public health crisis that it is. Viewing this crisis through the lens of public health will compel us to look at the root causes of violence and crime and work to address the problems at the source. Our current strategy of law enforcement first and only is ineffective and never will bring the kind of long-term, sustained progress that we need. In my travels across this city, I hear from people all over that they simply don't feel safe. We have to change that perception and provide the reality of public safety for everyone in every neighborhood. I've released a detailed plan to tackle this, but aside from treating public safety as a public health crisis, we also need to have a much more proactive plan to fight the gun violence. Every single year, the Chicago Police Department takes more crime guns off our streets than New York or LA combined. And it's not because we have a better strategy. It's because there's too many guns on our streets. They are pouring over the border from Indiana, from Wisconsin, from Michigan, and the southern states like Mississippi. I will put on my former federal prosecutor hat and challenge the U.S. Attorney's Office, not only here, but in those source states, to step up and work with the Chicago Police Department on a proactive plan to focus on the gun traffickers, the felons in possession, and the straw purchasers who are wreaking havoc on our streets. We must also, of course, address public corruption. We have to tackle this. Simply put, my goal and my hope, with your help, is that we will start a very public death on public corruption starting on April 2nd, 2019. We simply can no longer be complicit and silent in the face of elected officials who put their own personal profit above doing the work of the people. We can no longer accept aldermanic prerogative, which means to get basic access to city services, you got to give more to get. We should reject that as taxpayers and residents of this city. We must reject the process by which certain people amass every possible title in a broken and corrupt political system that serves the clouded few and leaves the rest of us on the outside looking in. This isn't just about the names that we have heard in the news, Ed Burke and Danny Solis. It is about a whole infrastructure of corruption that denies ordinary Chicagoans a government that is responsive to their needs and accountable to the people. My friends, we must change that immediately. And just as public safety and corruption-free government must be top priorities, we must also bring focus and attention to economic development in our neighborhoods. And there are several pillars to my approach. The first is focusing on building up small businesses in our neighborhoods. We need small businesses that will hire from the neighborhoods to help build wealth and capacity where they sit. That same energy that we've exerted to lure the likes of Amazon and Google and McDonald's to invest here, we must also exert the same kind of energy to create neighborhood-based incubators for small business growth. I know from working with small businesses for years that one of the biggest challenges they face is access to capital. This is where a mayor and her team can make the case to banks and other lenders to lower the barriers to accessing capital so that entrepreneurs with a solid business plan will actually have an opportunity to thrive in the city. The city itself, frankly, must do its part to provide access to grants, not matching grants, to grants and low-interest loans and other financing opportunities. And when we talk about small businesses, we need to make sure that women and veterans and minorities are part of that equation. This is not just the responsibility for government, but for companies that do business with the city. It is important that our values are aligned, and those of you who are in business will understand supply chain diversity matters. We need a commitment that in every city contract for goods and services that is procured, that we are thoughtful about how we can build wealth for City of Chicago residents and businesses. We also need to incentivize other bigger businesses to partner with Chicago to invest in neighborhoods who need resources and community anchors. Many areas of the city have every kind of desert that you can imagine: food, healthcare, pharmacy, mental health services, and the list goes on and on. The only way that we can eliminate these deserts is if the business community and others join with us to make a difference that can truly mean life or death to people in these cities, these neighborhoods. Simply put, a mayor who sees these kinds of needs can make that investment happen by using the levers of government to spotlight the need and then work tirelessly to fill the voids with city and private resources, and I will do just that. Many of you in this audience also work for companies that will make philanthropic investments already, and you personally are also generous in the kinds of things that you do to really uplift the quality of life in our neighborhoods. And people ask me all the time, what can I do to help? That question underscores, to me, how engaged people are all over the city and want to be helpful in meeting unmet needs. As mayor, I will articulate a vision for investment that offers an array of options for the kind of charitable giving as well. Let me talk briefly about education. Of course, we need to continue making progress in public education from pre-K through college. One of my priorities is really providing real choice in every neighborhood. It pains me that so many CPS kids have to get up at the crack of dawn, leave their neighborhood, travel miles and miles, in some instances up to 5 miles, to go elsewhere for the hope of getting a decent public education. Intended or not, we are sending a message to those children that their neighborhoods are not worth investing in. We have to change that by making sure that we have good quality level 1+ high school and elementary schools in every neighborhood with a full array of services so that those neighborhood schools can become the community anchors that are going to help drive economic development as well. And one last topic that I want to touch upon before I wind down. We have to have real affordable housing in this city. This is the issue that people bring to me on a regular basis in addition to the violence. People fear that they cannot stay in their neighborhoods, that our city is becoming something unrecognizable, that isn't hospitable and welcoming to low-income and middle-income families and individuals. It is shameful that in the last 15 years, 2/3 of our city has had no units of affordable housing built. We are in a crisis, down 120,000 units, and yet we only have about 300 plus online from city government. We have to reverse this trend if we are going to continue to be a city that is welcome all income classes to Chicago. We will not become a city where only the super rich or the super poor can stay. This city has given me incredible opportunities, and I want to give it back with a vision that no matter who you are, no matter where you live, the God you worship, or the person you love, we are all united in a mission to create meaningful opportunity for all. Chicago should be an example other American cities look to for how culture and communities thrive, world-class businesses can grow, and government can work to support the kind of infrastructure, social safety net, and affordability that allows all of our residents to be proud and happy to call this great city home. If you remember nothing else from today, please take this with you. We cannot look away when our neighbor is suffering. We must not ignore and avert our eyes to the great need that surrounds us. We must have an educated consciousness and act in whatever way we feel comfortable, but we must act. Our silence is a ratification of the status quo, which has and will continue to fail all of us. There is and will continue to be direct and calculable cost of our neglect. Now, despite these challenges, we have the tools at our fingertips to do better. In this great city where we have world-class talent in every neighborhood, in every institution and organization, we have the tools that we need right here, right now, to change the course of our collective history. That is our challenge, but that is also our opportunity. What we have been missing, and what I think we desperately need, is a leader who is not beholden to special interests nor a broken and corrupt political machine, who is independent, experienced, and a fierce proponent of change. And I am that leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lori Lightfoot. We have time for some questions. So if anybody has a question that they would like to address to Lori, just hold up your blue slip. I see Shelby Goodman from our staff out there. She'll be glad to come by and pick up your questions. Okay, we have several questions up here already. This is from Shar Rivette, City Club member with the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center. Shar, where are you? Right down here. Good. Question, Lori, is this. There are over 2,400 reports of child sexual abuse each year, yet Chicago has no comprehensive sexual abuse prevention initiative. Will you, as mayor, dedicate funds for this?
I will. It's a huge issue. It's a challenge. It's something that I understand personally. and I'm committed to making sure that we do everything that we can to protect our kids.
Okay, this is from Ashvin Ladd, sitting right down here, the gentleman who's follically challenged on his head. How does the role of tourism fit into your overall plans?
Well, I think I spoke to that briefly in my remarks. Look, we are an amazing city. People are coming to us from all over the country. I know, frankly, from being out at festivals in the downtown area, but really in neighborhoods all over the city this summer when we were collecting petitions, every conceivable language was being spoken, in part because of our residents, but also because of the great number of tourists that come to the city. So I want to make sure that we continue to do everything we can to keep attracting tourists. It's a lifeblood of our economy, and I want to make sure that that continues to thrive.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you, Ashvin. This is from Pastor Randall Blakey. Pastor, where are you?
Back there.
Back there in the rear off to the right. Good. His question deals with casino gambling, and he feels that it's an unwise approach to economic development. Your thoughts on casino gambling in Chicago?
Sure. I understand that there are concerns about it, but I support it. We have obviously buses that are leaving from Chinatown, from the Hyatt, from all over the city, taking people to Indiana, taking them to Aurora, taking them to Rosemont. I think we have now a mature infrastructure related to gaming, and I know that, frankly, from some of the work that I did at, dare I say it again, Mayor Brown. And frankly, what my view is that we ought to have a casino that is owned by Chicago, that those tax dollars come to us. We obviously need to make sure that the regulatory infrastructure addresses the challenges that I think are the, underlying the concern about your question. But it's here. It's all around us. And frankly, if I become mayor, I'm going to press the governor to make sure that that gets included in the state's economic development plan, because I think we need that here in Chicago.
Thank you, Lori. By the way, Joe Szabo, you're going to retire. If a casino comes here, we could maybe get you a position. Yeah, okay. I have a really important announcement to make. You know, MSNBC, all these stations, they have breaking news. President Doherty has just handed me a card which says that Willie Wilson has just endorsed Lori Lightfoot.
We'll have a more formal announcement later. Obviously, Dr. Wilson likes to march to his own drum, but I am deeply grateful. Dr. Wilson is really an incredible man. He has an unbelievable life story. His generosity to people all over the city, but particularly to the Black communities that are struggling, I think warrants our support and our applause and our thanks. I am grateful that he is going to be formally announcing his endorsement of me. And I look forward to work with him. You know, Dr. Wilson grew up as a sharecropper in Arkansas, as did my father. And frankly, there are many things that I see in him that I know my father would appreciate and be proud of. And we will work together, as I will with other folks, to make sure that we continue to move forward to bring the change that this city needs. And I'm just going to take a personal point and also thank Sonny Chico for being here. She is an incredibly gracious and remarkable person. And we started to get to know each other on the campaign trail. And frankly, there were times that she stayed in forums after Gary was gone just to listen and be present. And I'm really deeply grateful for her. I really appreciate you, and thanks so much for being here today.
Well, thank you, Sonny, for being here. By the way, you know, the City Club was the first public affairs forum to have Dr. Willie Wilson speak here. And you just heard it here. We broke the news. Pay your $50, you could be in on some more path-breaking news. I'd also like to acknowledge Rufus Williams, strong supporter of the City Club of Chicago. Thank you very much. And now we'll get back to a couple of questions. This is from Jack Crow with Years Up. Year Up. Well, that fellow's phone, you know, knocked me off my track. His question is, how would you address workforce development?
Well, Jack, I'm going to come and talk to you and take some lessons. Look, this is a big challenge, and we can't revitalize our neighborhoods, grow economic development in other areas if we don't have a ready, willing, and able workforce. And I frankly think the work that you've done at Year Up, the work that's being done by Heartland Alliance and Arnie Duncan, those are models that I think that we can draw upon, but we need to scale them up because we're not reaching nearly the number of people that we can. So when I talk about having business partner with us, that is, to me, one of the most pressing priorities, is to help us in neighborhoods where, frankly, there is no history of work or very little, to help us, there are people develop the soft skills that they need to match up people who are ready to work with employers and jobs. And Jack, I think you've done a yeoman's job at Year Up, and certainly I'd be calling upon you to give us advice on how we can make that process reach far more people. I'm talking in the thousands, because that's the scale in which we need to have it.
Hey, good. We have time for a few more questions. Good. This is from John West. John, are you here?
Yes,
right over there. You know this is going to be a softball question. He's wearing one of your buttons. Okay.
So.
Absolutely. Next time, you know, put it away so you can pass. Your views on an airport, south suburb, south side.
Thank you for asking me that question, John. Look, this is a conversation that, frankly, hasn't really come up in quite a long time. And I think that we have to think about those options. I know it's of great concern to, frankly, Congresswoman Robin Kelly. And I'll share with you what I've said to her, which is this. We have to think about larger economic development issues, indeed. But my concern, if I'm fortunate enough to become the mayor, is I don't want to do anything that's going to negatively impact the incredible growth that's happened at Midway Airport. So that's a conversation. If it becomes relevant at the state level, then we will have it, and I will be active and engaged in that. But obviously, I want to make sure that we're protecting the assets that we've invested in Midway.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is from City Club member Paul Schnee. Got your name correct. He's affiliated with Ingenuity. Paul, where are you?
He's right here.
Right down here. Good. Mm-hmm. We have seen great growth in our public schools, but equitable access to programs such as the arts and more is a challenge. How will you work to ensure kids in all schools have equal access to resources?
Thank you for that question, and thank you, frankly, for the work that Ingenuity has been doing to really support our public schools. Look, I'm a kid whose parents sacrificed to get me a trumpet so I could be in the band. I'm also a singer. Not so great anymore, but I used to be. But in announcing our arts policy a few weeks back, that I was honored to have an array of different artists from this city stand with me. One of the things that we talked about is the absolute need to bring arts in all forms back into our public schools. We specifically propose an artist in residency possibility so that we have working artists who essentially will have a free studio for a year, supplied with grant money, to be active and present and really unlock the imagination of kids in our elementary schools and high schools. School has to be something that is fun and enriching and nurturing. We can't just strip away all of the things that make it an interesting and fun school day. So I'm very focused on that as part of the plan to uplift the quality of life of our neighborhood schools. So thanks for your question.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Lori. Speaking of schools and education, your views on a appointed or elected school board?
Well, I've been very clear that I favor a fully elected school board. My mother was on a school board in the small town that I grew up in. And what I saw from her experience over those years is having the ability for parents to connect up with somebody who could be their advocate, somebody who could be their voice, I think is critically important. And I don't fear having a fully elected school board. If I'm grateful enough to be the mayor of this great city, managing relationships with all kinds of organizations and particularly elected officials is part of the job. I want to make sure, of course, that we have, if we have an elected school board, that it is populated by parents, people who have been through the LSC process, people who are current parents. That's the kind of school board that I envision. And of course, the devil's in the details about who gets there, how they get there, how long they stay, what is the level of expertise. But I think these are things that we can work through. And let's acknowledge why this is a topic of conversation. People feel like they haven't been heard. They feel like there's been great injury to the way in which decisions have been made as to how resources are allocated, how frankly the sex abuse scandal was handled, and how, of course, decisions about what schools stay open or close have been handled. That is at the root of these challenges. So frankly, one of, I think, the biggest important things that I can do if I'm fortunate enough to become mayor is go out into those communities that have been harmed by the work that has been done over these last 7 years and say to them, as I've said to the NTA parents, I hear you, and you will be welcome at our table.
Thank you, thank you. I have 3 last questions here. This is from Nellie Vasquez Rowland. Nellie, where are you? Right there, City Club member, great. Her question deals with the heroin opioid epidemic, root causes to homeless epidemic. How will you address providing adequate resources to providers in the city to help people get back on their feet?
Well, I think in both of these areas, frankly, our lack of engagement and involvement in resources, and frankly, just talking about it really has hurt and harmed people. And frankly, in my travels and seeing the burgeoning homeless population, whether it's the tent city that's popped up near Roosevelt Road or other areas of the city, as a person of faith, I feel like that's a sin. And I believe that we have to do better. What I have proposed is a progressive tax and a real estate transfer tax to give relief to homeowners at the lower end of the housing scale for $500,000 or less, but use what we believe will be $60 to $80 million every single year to tackle homelessness and the root causes of homelessness, a lot of which, of course, is addiction issues and mental health issues. So I think we have to step up and lead in this issue. I meant when I said that we can't continue to turn a blind eye when our neighbor is in need. And those people that are out on the street and suffering, they deserve our respect and they deserve our help.
Okay, 2 last questions. This is from Perry Ermer, who's the director of the Szabo Museum of African American History. Perry, where are you?
She's
right there. What will you do to address, this is her word, the abysmally low participation rate of African American contractors in public work?
Well, I'll do what I did when I helped run this procurement department. I'm going to change that. I'm going to fix it. I know exactly what to do, and I'm going to make sure that we hold people accountable. There's no trick in the book that I don't know about. And I know how to fix it. And we need to make sure that we have legitimate contractors in the system, not shams and frauds. We need to make sure, frankly, that people are not selling their status to the highest bidder. And we need to make sure that if minority, women, veterans, businesses are on these contracts, that they actually get paid in a timely fashion.
By the way, if you're elected and you don't do any of those things, her father, Ted Z. Manuel, will be writing letters to the Tribune, Sun-Times, and elsewhere. He writes the best letters I've read in a long time. Okay, our last question from Trish Devlantes. Trish, where are you? All the way back there. Good, in the euchre seats. Great. Her question deals with people like Dr. Janice Jackson, Eddie Johnson at the police department, and so forth. Is your intention to keep those folks, not to keep those folks, to look at what, could you just comment on that?
Sure. My intention is to win the election so those questions become relevant.
We just have 2 orders of business, but number 1, let's give a big round of applause to mayoral candidate Lori Lightfoot.
Our officers.
Jeff Berkowitz, thanks for joining us on the Illinois Channel. We're going to take a bit of an in-depth look at the run for the mayor of Chicago. I think what they care about are the issues we're talking about. What are you going to do about the schools? What are you going to do about fixing the financial situation of the city? And what are you going to do about the level of crime and ensuring that we have safe neighborhoods? Would I be right on that?
Yes.
The Illinois Channel, keeping you connected to your state, your issues, your home.